Simple-minded appeasement or wishful thinking about our adversaries is folly. To ignore the facts of history and the aggressive impulses of an evil empire, to simply call the arms race a giant misunderstanding.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Famous words from President Ronald Reagan as he took on the Soviet Union, but today's Republican Party is divided over whether to confront Russia or not. The so-called Tucker Carlson effect is pushing some on the right to question why there's a need to get involved in Ukraine at all when there's a border crisis here, along with rising inflation and crime. The debate raging as all eyes are on Orlando, Florida. Republicans are flocking to the Conservative Political Action Conference going on through the weekend, the Woodstock for conservatives and presidential candidates. Among the speakers, former President Trump, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, Ted Cruz, also Democrat Tulsi Gabbard, who has accused members of her own party of escalating tensions with Vladimir Putin. And among those notably not speaking at CPAC this year, former Vice President Mike Pence, former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, both of whom are seen as potential presidential candidates, and Texas Governor Greg Abbott. With that, we bring in Tony Katz, esteemed radio host and explainer of all things on the right that are occasionally confounding. All right, you and I have had a lot of conversations. I just don't get this.
Which part don't you get? That there's a conversation about how people want to view Ukraine or how they want to apply themselves to Ukraine? And we go back to the congressman's statement there, the idea that sanctions aren't on the table because, well, they'll just go and sell the oil in China. Well, that would say that the Europeans know they're going to lose the oil or the natural gas, I should say. Anyway, you might as well engage the sanctions now. Then there's the conversation about President Biden himself, who made the claim that if there is invasion, the sanctions will be swift and severe, and they have not been swift, nor have they been severe, which is him going back on his word. Yeah,
no argument on either of those points. What I don't understand is the debate that's going on where you are at CPAC in Orlando among conservatives. Standing up for American values, for freedom, and for our allies was sacrosanct in the Republican Party. Goes all the way back to Ronald Reagan. And now you've got a lot of members of the Republican, I put it in air quotes, party puppeting sort of pro-Kremlin talking points. It's bizarre to me.
So I will give you a bit of disagreement here, that it's wrong to think that people are saying, oh, I'm pro-Putin, if they're saying we shouldn't be involved in Ukraine. Rather, the conversation should be about
hold on. They're not saying pro-Putin. You put up the Josh Hawley quote again. Okay, right. Josh Hawley, senator from Missouri, wakes up every morning, looks in the mirror and says, "Good morning, Mr. President." And he says, I don't think we should be committing more to NATO. I don't think we should be doing more to secure Europe. Sending new troops, expanding the security commitments. Hawley calls on Biden to drop support for Ukraine membership in NATO. That is a Kremlin talking point right there.
But it's also a European talking point. The French and the Germans, they're not going to engage a conversation regarding Ukraine in NATO. There is an interesting conversation about whether or not NATO has gotten too large in terms of the number of members for what it is some of those members provide. Then there's the conversation of why is Germany still, I mean, maybe they're doing more things behind the scenes than I realize, but they are still not in a very proactive way saying we have to put an end to this. And the Nord Stream 2 pipeline has been a big part of the conversation where people then go back to President Trump, who was very supportive of telling Germany, why are you emboldening Russia that's only going to abuse you?
Yeah, well, with friends like the Germans, who needs enemies at this point? Okay, let's be honest about that. But still, explain to me what's happening at CPAC, and is this, and I'll use it, America first, just like we had in the late 30s and early 40s in America, is this a real movement inside the Republican Party? What and who's going to win the battle?
I think that the concept of America first is absolutely within the activist class. Your conversation is, what does that actually mean and how do we define it? What I was going to say earlier was, if you want to now get into history lessons, which are very, very valuable about this is why America acts in this way and this is what it's able to deter when applied properly, that's an educational lesson that sometimes needs to be given, and there need to be people that we can look to who can actually prescribe that lesson and bring about that lesson. That is something that I would agree is a little bit missing. There's nothing wrong with asking, wait a second, what is our plan here and how do we do this? There's also something else at play. Our military today, the fine men and women who serve are still fine men and women who serve. But our leadership in the military today isn't what it used to be.
Well, yeah,
we have a different vision of the military. We have a different attitude towards the military. It seems to be sometimes a tool of social justice as opposed to breaking things and killing the enemy. That's a real problem.
Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.